Hey guys, welcome back. We're here to do another video in the series that I was doing about where I'm talking about all the books that are my favorites. I think we did my favorite children's books, my favorite thrillers, my favorite young adult fantasy. Anyways, we're here to talk about all my favorite graphic novels. And these are not manga. There might have to be another one for mangas. Now, I do have to preface that there are many of these graphic novels listed here that I haven't finished the entire series. Some of these series go on for a really long time, and it's actually really challenging to get all of the graphic novels affordably. I can check out quite a few from my library, from Hoopla. My digital library is a really great resource for getting to read a lot of these graphic novels. That's pretty much where I've read most of these from. Some of these are more short runs, and then some of them are standalones, and some of them are memoirs. So there's a lot of different ones to cover in this list. The first one is The Tea Dragon Society by Kate O'Neill. I think there are about 4 or 5 now, but when I read this, there was only the one, and it was so popular. Everybody, it seemed like, was talking about this, and it looks like it's kind of made for kids. But I do think that there are a little bit more themes going on for older people. So I personally have only read the first one. This is about a girl who's discovering the lost art of tea dragons. She ends up finding a lost tea dragon and then she soon becomes enchanted by the Tea Dragon Society, who finds them and cares for them. She also befriends a lot of the other people in the Tea Dragon Society, and you just really learn to love all of these characters. I would maybe argue that this might be the catalyst for the cozy fantasy phenomenon that has hit in the last couple of years. I wouldn't say that there's a whole lot to say about the story, but it's absolutely so cute. It is so sweet. The illustrations are to die for. You're dealing with a lot of themes of friendship. I would say that this series also feels a lot like Animal Crossing in a way. There's also one character who is in a wheelchair, and I think that that is really cool. The next one is Saga by Brian K. Vaughan, who is the writer, and Fiona Staples, who is the illustrator. So Saga is an out-of-this-world science fiction series. It's really long running. I have not read many of these at all, to be honest, but what I have read is really good. The story kicks off at a really fast pace with high stakes. You're following this boy who is the child of the product of 2 characters from opposite sides of this war. They fell in love and then died to save him. They were hunted down because of their situation, being deserters, and all because they loved each other. Hold on, let me restate that. They were hunted down because of the fact that they fell in love and then they became deserters so that they could be together. Plus having a child in that whole situation. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to explain this story because it gets really complex, but it's just really good. I find that it's incredibly visually interesting. We have all these different creatures, including these creatures with TV heads, and I think they're just so goofy looking. I feel like there's so much to take in that it's really difficult to remember everything that happens, and I think that this series is very rereadable because of that fact. I feel like every time, if you were to reread it multiple times, you're going to get something new out of it every single time. This is also not for kids at all. Like, even young adults. I wouldn't necessarily want my 16-year-old reading it. I think there's a lot of nudity, like right off the bat, like the first page, there's nudity. So definitely for adults. The next one is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. I don't know if she's the illustrator. I just plopped the picture in my notes and I can't read all the details. This is a fall-time cozy standalone graphic novel. I have read twice now. If I could get a copy of this one, I would read it every single year for fall. This is absolutely so cute. It follows a group of teens or young adults during one day at their job where they work at a pumpkin patch. There's all kinds of silly shenanigans going on, mishaps, and it's a seasonal, fun-loving, good time. I love this one because I absolutely love autumn time, fall time activities that come along with the season, apple cider, pumpkins, candied apples, hay rides. What's not to love and to feel happy about? The next one is Plate Tectonics by Margot Moten. This is a standalone graphic memoir, and it's been a lot of years since I have read this one. The story is really sweet for sure. I really love the story of a single mom and going through some of the struggles, if I remember all this correctly. But it's also really playful, and I think what I loved most about it was the illustration style. It doesn't really look like a traditional comic book. It's more kind of like an art book, but it tells a really good story, and it's just really pretty. The next one is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This one has also popped up in my favorite nonfictions, but it is a graphic memoir. There's actually 2 volumes, or I guess they broke it up into 4 books, 2 big volumes. I'm not really sure how they organized it. As far as I know, I have read both of them, or all 4 of them. Anyways, this is about Marjane Satrapi's life in Tehran from the age of 6, growing up through the Islamic Revolution. I personally found the story just really educational in a really fun way. Based on the knowledge that I had prior to reading this book, I didn't really know about that. But this is also an incredibly heartbreaking story. It's a black and white comic strip style that I really enjoyed as far as the illustrations go. Volume 2 actually talks more about her college years and the experience of being displaced from her family, moving to, I want to say, France, and staying with an aunt, which didn't end up working out too well, just how hard that all was, and coming of age as an adult. I do have to say, of the 2 volumes, I liked the first one the best. The next one is Paper Girls, also by Brian K. Vaughan and illustrated by Cliff Chang. This series is an 80s nostalgic sci-fi time travel series. It's Technicolor graphics I can't ever get over. It follows 4 girls on one morning of their paper route when something goes horribly wrong, and they find out that they're in a different timeline. There's something really sinister out there that they believe is hunting them potentially. They wind up on a quest to get back to their own timeline. But they do happen to run into different versions of themselves in different timelines, and having to confront different aspects of themselves. Throughout the series, I have just grown to love every single one of these characters, and I just think that there's more to love because not only do you get to see them as themselves, the teenagers that they are, but you get to see them as adults and versions of them from different times. And you know how much I love character development, so I just can't think of a more unique way to get that character development than how they do it in this series. There are 6 volumes to the series, and I think I'm mostly finished with it. I've either read 4 or 5. I feel like I've had to have read more than 4. Anyways, I do think there was a point where it was a little bit repetitive, but I still just don't care because repetitive or not, I'm still also loving reading more about these characters and how they're interacting with each other, their friendship, the things that they're learning about themselves. I do think that they discontinued this one, which I think is a really good choice instead of continuing it on, because if it's already getting repetitive, stop while it's good, right? The next one is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, and actually, one second, I just acquired this. I literally cannot believe that I just found a copy of this at the thrift store for $3. In fact, when I took it all to the register with the other books that I acquired, they didn't even charge me the $3 that was marked on the book. They only charged me the price that they charge for every other book, which I think was like $1 per book, which, hey, even better. Anyways, I'm so happy to have this. I have read this book twice now. I've watched the movie 3 times now. Needless to say, I think I love this series. Well, it's not even a series, it's a standalone. This is a really thick graphic novel standalone. So you end up following this knight. A mistake was made. He ends up being called a traitor and a villain, but there has been a really big mistake. Nimona seeks him out to be a villainous mastermind. However, he wants to clear the air, clear his name, and resume being the honorable knight that he knows he is. And together they scheme out a plan. All the while Nimona has more nefarious plans and keeps kind of messing up the knight's plans, if that makes sense. Also, Nimona is a shifter, and this book is just really silly. It's fun, and eventually you learn Nimona's backstory, which, you know me, I love the villain's backstory much more than I enjoy the hero's story, because it always starts with some tragedy that's super heartfelt. And I think in most villain stories, it's been like a love story or friendship, a story of betrayal in some way. And I feel like you can't really go through life without, in some way, knowing what that sort of betrayal feels like. So throughout all this fun, loving, fun stuff, there is a very heartfelt story at its core. So that's Nimona. The next one is Lumberjanes by, again, Noelle Stevenson. You can definitely see the similarities of the illustration style, which I absolutely love the illustration style. When it comes to graphic novels, I feel like if I don't like the illustration style, I have a really difficult time connecting to the story because I find it really distracting if I really don't like the art style. And probably vice versa. If I love the art style, I will keep reading it even if I don't think that the story is very strong. But anyways, The Lumberjanes is a really long-running story with 20 primary works and 33 total works. And I'm not really sure what that means, if they're calculating bind-ups or compendiums. Anyway, needless to say, I have actually only read maybe 3 of them. So I'm very, very far behind. This basically follows a troop of Girl Scouts, but they're called the Lumberjanes. They're in the wilderness and they're trying to do these activities and get badges. But there's definitely more than just bugs and bears in the wilderness. There's other things like a 3-eyed fox and a shape-shifting bear, I think, because it's been a while since I've read this one. They also find themselves on a magical quest, and it's just a lot of fun. I really love these kinds of camp stories because they just feel so much like summer, and the characters are just really fun. There's a lot of character building throughout the series. You know, you just learn to love these characters. The next one is Lady Mechanica by Jo Benitez. And this series has 11 primary works. This is pretty different than all of the previously mentioned graphic novels. The art style, even the story, is dark and gritty. This is a steampunk complete with airships and monsters, and I absolutely live for this art style. Lady Mechanica is a survivor of a mad scientist experiment, so she's left with these mechanical parts. She has created a life for herself as a private investigator, using her unique abilities to solve crimes that the usual authorities can't quite solve. And she's also still looking for answers of what happened to her. I've read the first one in the series. I own this one. And I will often just flip through it to look at the art style, look at the costumes. For example, yeah, so you get the idea. This is definitely a series that I must continue. The next one is I Hate Fairyland, and I actually own 2 of these, but I don't have them because I let my friend borrow them, and it was a long time ago that I let her borrow them, like almost a year ago. Thinking about it now, I should probably ask her if she has them still. I mean, she better have them. Anyways, this is I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young, and back to a really colorful one, yet still pretty dark. There are 7 primary works and 1 untold tales. It says there's 12 total works. And I think that they are counting compendiums with this one. But yeah, in total, I read about 4 or 5 of these. This one is fantastic. It's completely unhinged. And I think you might consider it splatterpunk. I'm kind of new to the term, but I heard that term recently. And I would say that this is like splatterpunk because it's just super gory. Only it's in really bright colors. This follows a little girl named Gertrude who gets sucked into fairyland, and she was supposed to follow this quest, this game or whatever. However, she couldn't finish it and she got stuck. And now it has been 30 years, and she is still stuck in a little girl's body. So she goes completely insane and starts axe murdering anything that gets in her way. She is also accompanied by this fly who I think is supposed to stick with her as like a mentor until she completes the game. So as much as he would love to abandon her, I don't think that he can or something. But he's also a ton of fun. An incredible story. Now, I would also say that this is not for kids because it is very violent. However, call me a bad mom, I don't know. My son got a hold of this and started reading it and just laughing so hysterically. And I just didn't have the heart to take it away from him. I mean, I guess it's kind of like playing a video game also, but I was kind of torn. I was like, are you too young for this one? I don't know. The next one is Giant Days by John Allison and illustrated by Lissa Treeman. This is another long-running series with 21 primary works. This one's also different than any of the other ones because it's not really fantasy. As far as I can tell at this point, because I've only read, I think, 2 of them, but there's something so addicting to them, and I've already fallen in love with the characters and the setting. This follows 3 friends in college, and essentially it's just following their life. It's coming of age in college, and it says that things are about to get weird. And I really liked this. The illustrations are excellent. I felt instantly connected to the characters, and I just look forward to reading more about them. The next one is Skyward by Joe Henderson and illustrated by Lee Garbett and other contributors. This is sadly a really short running series. and I think it's complete. It says that there are 3 primary works. So this includes 15 total issues, which are combined into 3 volumes. This is a really interesting story where something happened to Earth and there is such low gravity, not no gravity completely, but low gravity, so much so that so much of the things on Earth have just kind of floated off into space, and they call it G-Day. But some people have managed to figure out how to survive in a low gravity Earth, so we're following this girl Willa and what that's like, bit bopping all around Earth with low gravity, trying not to float off into outer space. There's also a subplot following her dad, who is working to bring back gravity. And it's just really fun. It includes these giant flying bugs and really creative ways of getting around, flying through the air without flying off into space. And then even into the last book, there's something new that is introduced as well, which I thought was really cool and interesting. I felt like this one could still continue on with the series, so I don't know why it ended. It didn't feel like it was complete. There was new stuff coming out, but yeah, this is really good. And I actually read all 3 volumes of this as well. All right, the next one is Primer by Jennifer Murrow and other contributors. And this was a really fun series. I think of superhero vigilante, but she uses these special paints. This follows a girl whose father ends up in prison and she has to live with a foster family. Her foster mom has a top secret job, and the main character accidentally discovers this top secret paint, and now she has to also hide her identity so no one sees her. And it's just really good. I'm really enjoying the story. So far, there's only 2. I think this is a relatively new series, so hopefully they're going to continue publishing more of the series. I think that it has a lot of potential. And I think that this really speaks to people who are just really creative or really artsy. Okay, I can't have a favorites list without mentioning my all-time favorite, Buffy comics by Joss Whedon and illustrated by Georges Gentry. And fun fact, I actually did get to meet Georges Gentry and he signed a book for me. Let me actually go run and grab that so you can see. All right, I think when it comes to comic books as well, the Buffy and Angel series have a very different sort of format to them, maybe. I guess other ones have these giant compendium editions as well. Here is one of them. This is season 8, volume 1. And I think there are, of these, I think there's like 4 or 5 each of these large ones. But we went to Comic-Con where we met him and he did this cool little illustration and signed it for me. And then I have a couple other things also that we got signed, and we bought 3 more of these books as well. Season 9, 1, 2, and 3, which is cool because I have all of the season 8 between this and my other ones. So this is a continuation of the TV show. The TV show had 7 seasons, and now I believe they're on to 12 seasons that they have continued with the comic books. Like, they kept up with the seasons, labeling them as seasons, because I don't think a lot of other comic books call them like seasons and then volumes and then issues and all that stuff. So I feel like that might be a little confusing. Maybe that's not news to other people. I mean, the whole Buffy Angel universe is so massively huge, especially when you get into the comic books, because not only do they have the primary works, but they have these little spin-offs. Like Willow has a little story of her own on the side, and so does Cordelia and Spike and Giles, and I think I saw one for Xander. I mean, it's just so massively huge. I could fill my library with all of them. I have read the first 6 volumes of season 8. I don't know why I haven't continued on with it, except the fact that I did kind of stop reading them because I wanted to go back and read and watch the entire TV show and then seamlessly pick up the graphic novels and continue on with them. Also, Hoopla has a bunch of them available to check out. But anyways, so it's obviously still a favorite. All right, the next one is Be Prepared by Vera Broskol. And this is another graphic memoir. It follows young Vera who is a Russian girl who just wants to fit in with her peers. She hears that the girls at her school are going to be going to summer camp, and so she runs home to tell her mom, "Oh mom, I want to go to summer camp with my schoolmates." So her mom ends up sending her to summer camp, but lo and behold, she doesn't go to the same summer camp as the other girls. She winds up at Russian summer camp. That wasn't exactly what she had in mind. It kind of reminds me of like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, that movie, you know, where she kind of rejects her Greek heritage and her Greek family because they don't fit in with like the girls at school. That's kind of what this like reminds me of, only Vera is Russian. So not only is it not what she had in mind, she still finds that she doesn't quite fit in. So she finally gives up and just starts doing something that she's always loved, drawing. So she's sitting at this table, she's drawing, and somebody comes up to her and thinks that what she's doing is really cool. And she finds that she can just be herself, and that's all she needs to be. And so it's kind of a coming of age story. She finds a new friend, and it's a story about accepting yourself. And it's so cute. I love it. Again, with these summer camp vibes, you gotta love it. It feels very much like summer. The illustrations are really cute too. That's the end of this list so far. I've really missed reading more graphic novels over the past couple of years, and I should probably really get back into that. I didn't do what I usually do with a more analysis of the themes and stuff like that in these stories, like I have done in the other videos in this series. And I just think it's because graphic novels are just so much different. But overall, through all of these, there's a lot of themes of friendship. I think that one stands out the most. There's also villains and darker themes, like in I Hate Fairyland, except for in the horror realm, I'm not really into a lot of gore in horror, like movies or other media, but I really like it in this series, and I just think it's because the cartoon style is different. It's different, you know, than seeing like in real life. For me, it's more palatable, I guess. There's also a lot of themes of characters who are alone or lonely, and they're really just trying to find themselves. Coming of age stories, also a big theme here. I feel like in my experience, people that I know, adults, don't really read graphic novels or comic books. There seems to be some sort of stigma, and I kind of wonder if that isn't partially generational. I'm a kid of the 90s, but even generations before me who are a little bit older than me, I think that comic books were kind of stigmatized as being like super nerdy for kind of like basement dweller types. And it was kind of idolized to have these very specific generalizations of groups of people, you know, your cheerleaders, your jocks, your nerdy kids, your comic book readers, that sort of things. And those kids are the ones that get picked on, that sort of thing. Generally stigmatized as childish and not cool. I love that in my kids' generation, it's kind of the cool thing now to be the nerdy kid who likes to read a lot, who reads graphic novels and or comic books. There's also a much bigger blending of different groups instead of just generalized, very specific groups. You fit in one group, you can't fit in other groups. That seems to kind of have dissipated a lot, which is really great for my kids. I wish it was like that when I was a kid. My point is that graphic novels are very underrated. The stories in comic books can have just as much depth as a full-length novel, as well as character development. They can enrich your life just as much. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you have any recommendations for me, feel free to drop them below, and we'll see you soon. Bye.